whatever yours is.
Oh, it's gonna make you off.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No audio. Yes? No?
I can hear you.
Oh, we got sound. Awesome. So, I am Tabletop Misfits. I am your host for the evening. And as I was saying earlier before, if you can read lips, you already know the story, but I've been trying to get a hold of Crit Academy for a couple years now, and finally I was able to get a hold of Justin, and really looking forward to having a good old-fashioned interview. So if you have questions about GMing, player agency, descriptions, definitely throw those in the channel, because we're going to be answering all those questions while we kind of dig into what he's working on over on his side. So before I continue to blabber on forever, I'm going to let Justin kind of give you a little bit of a synopsis of who he is and where he comes from. So go for it, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I'm really excited. Sorry it took you so long to get a hold of me.
You're good.
Life was very busy for a while there. So you did an awesome introduction. I am Justin, and I am the host of the Crit Academy D&D. Well, originally it started off as just a podcast, but now we're publishers. And I spent a lot of my time creating up terrifying monsters to torment my players, and wonderful stories and tools for game masters to better improve their tabletop game. Over the 300 episodes plus of Crit Academy, we learned a lot of what ails our game masters in 5th edition, and so we started kind of with tackling some of those things. So I've spent a lot of time sharing experience as game masters. I've been playing for a very, very long time. My hair is getting, gray.
I feel that it's just the imagery, like where everything's setting. You can't see it, but there's gray all over this thing.
Well, you hide it really good.
I'm gonna keep trying, because somehow it's working right now.
It really has been a wonderful journey. I spend most of my time writing and publishing content to serve you, the people, and all the stresses and anguish that comes with some of the failure aspects of 5th edition and RPGs in general, because I think that we all have our own pain points, and I like to try to relieve that like extra strength Tylenol, man. And that's kind of what I've been up to for a while, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it. Obviously, we haven't been in the studio. We took a little hiatus because honestly it was very exhausting. We started another podcast on top of it, tried other RPGs after Wizards tried to screw everybody.
Oh yeah. I think I bought, like, right after that setting, I think I bought like 5 or 6 books, and then didn't have the time and energy to like try to learn another system right now. But
yeah.
I have a few of them that I've really enjoyed during
that. I'll tell you what. If you don't find the time to ever play another RPG, pick up Blades in the Dark, because as a game master, I promise you, no matter what RPG you play after playing that, you will be better at running heist and political intrigue and gang style territorial faction stuff. It is, even just taking the game master tools that are in that's provided, made me a million times better as a dungeon master.
There we go. There's a tip right there. Like you said, I mean, for me, that's a big deal, because those are the types of things I'm looking for all the time. Like, what can I take from another RPG and pull from it so that I can make something better?
Yeah.
This one, if we're going to go on like best RPGs for right now, this is one of my favorites now. So I don't know if you've played it yet. So this is The One Ring by
Ring?
Yep, by Free League Publishing.
Is that like the movie The Ring, or is it like Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Okay, that sounds way cooler.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
But they built combat. They built a lot of different features in their published version, because they also have a 5e version. But their actual One Ring version comes with things like how to run properly, like how they run properly, mechanics like exploration.
Right.
Council, which is a really unique one. So if you're trying to convince somebody to like help your cause or whatnot like that, they give you full-blown structure on how to do that in a mechanical way.
I like that.
So if you don't have a lot of really hard, like strong role players, this is a really cool mechanic to be able to use it, and you can just base it off of the actual story of what it's telling, the dice are telling you. So, but yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. I used to be really heavy into mechanics when I first started D&D, but I'm gonna be honest, the older I got, the more light I preferred it because, and you, I'm sure you can attest to that. The
Oh
amount
yeah,
of time it
100%.
takes to prep.
Yeah.
When I was running 3 games a week, I was like, this is so much work. Especially when I made the transition into from 4th edition to 5th edition, I was like, all right, this is a change I welcome because I can prep a game, a story, and tie all my players into it on a single sheet of paper. I couldn't do that before when trying to calculate in combat encounters and all these other things. So I'm that's one thing a direction that I'm happy to go.
Mm-hmm.
But because of its streamlined design, other RPGs do specific things just better, like you just mentioned with the One Ring. And taking that into our games, even if it's not fully fleshed out, is one of the best parts about being a game master, I think.
What did you try to say that was free? Oh, Eric, can you unlock that, or do I need to do that somehow?
Oh yeah, I tried to link to the thing
he
asked about.
Special.
Yeah, well, I think it's a safety thing.
So it is, but
you don't got people dropping spam in your thing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just copy and paste it, and that way, there we go. That's what he's trying to show you is the Amazon link.
Yeah, I tell you what, as a game master, that was. I mean, we did a whole show that covered all the different RPGs that we played, and then what we took from them to bring them into any other RPG. But that was one of the ones, if I had to recommend any sort of guide or tool for any dungeon master at any capacity, what you'll learn from Blades in the Dark is well worth the investment of reading the book once or playing once. Of course, once you play once, you won't stop because it's so. I mean, you literally not only. Okay, I'm gonna get on a little rant here. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's the fun part about this type of an interview is this is all it is just banter. So
one of the things that makes it amazing is we all love creating characters. That's one of my favorite parts of like Dungeons and Dragons or Numenera or whatever RPG I'm playing.
Right.
In Blades in the Dark, it gives the whole group a character sheet for the crew.
Right.
And you build a crew based on a crew's goals and features and mechanics that get flushed out and are decided by the team as you adventure, which that is not something that I had ever thought of before. And it was such a, oh yeah, we're a group, we're a faction. There should be a benefit for that, right?
Right.
Do we specialize in espionage? Do we specialize in, just knocking heads? Well, maybe what's the benefit of being a soldier? Well, we get a hireling, things like that. And John Harper that designed that really just hit the nail on the head when it came to not just the design of the game, but the game master section that teaches you how to be better is something that some other RPGs really drop the ball on. So,
interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pick that one up because that's one of the few I don't.
You won't regret it.
Another one I would say if you've never played it before, I've only remember from the old days, but I want to pick up the new version of it, but. Vampire the Masquerade, if you're looking for anything that has to do with social encounters or political crazy, that is the game for you. Like,
oh yeah,
politically, that game is solid for anything.
Political intrigue has always been my jams. Ever since I read the first Mistborn book, I really became hooked on that sort of aspect of RPGs because I like the betrayal and the twists and the interconnected plots, and watching my players not only unweave what I've made, but then realize I've taken ideas and random crap that they've spewed out and integrated into it because it was better than what I came up with. And then watching their joy when they're like, oh, we talked about this. Oh my God, we were right, way back here. And finding out, after all that this thing you're chasing or this problem you're trying to solve is a result of actions you had taken because of some terrible one-liner you did to and offended somebody, and now they're out
100%.
World,
Yeah. No, I love political intrigue. I'm not very good at it, because I haven't had enough chance to really dive into that portion of it. Most of my games are your very original based Dungeons and Dragons games. I try not to put it to the point where it's Diablo-esque though. It's not just run in, kill monster, get treasure. Run in, kill monster, get treasure. Like that's not what I'm trying to push, but there is kind of that rotation of things as you grow.
Hmm.
Um,
Are
in
you
this,
familiar with that strategy? Did you play fourth edition ever at all?
I have not.
It got abandoned pretty quick by a lot of people because it was so
I went
different. But
from third edition and 3.5 when I was in high school and college, and then I had kids and started the military, so my life was busy. So I never touched fourth edition, and then came back at fifth.
well, one thing that they
So,
did that was pretty cool and kind of what you're kind of describing, we used to call them dungeon crawls, but they
mhm,
did it in a way called dungeon delves. And
mm,
so you basically had this simple strategy of going and doing this thing, but it gave you enough knowledge and information that you could have a good role play session during the quote unquote dungeon crawl.
right.
And I think that that sort of strategy proves that you can have a classic Dungeons and Dragons experience inside
Mhm.
of more of a crawl and still get all the role play, get the exploration
Oh,
and get the
100%.
pillars. And
If you're not, like you said, because your favorite part is the characters, right? So if you're
mhm,
not putting NPCs in your dungeons
all
and
right,
utilizing them, like you're missing out on a wonderful way of exploring a dungeon. Um,
you're not wrong. And even if it's as simple as classic as the innocent caught captured in a cage, and do we release that person? Well, they're asking for help. Well, are they? We're in the middle of a dungeon. Like,
yeah, how
why are
did you
they here?
get here?
But that even a simple scene like that being
Right,
added to any sort of dungeon will change the way the players perceive what's going on, because now they
right.
start to get suspicious. But then you might have the paladin that's like, oh, I'm gonna go and save this person. Well,
Yep.
hang on a second, dude. Like, no, that door was closed and it looks like it hadn't been disturbed for like 1,000 years. You're not a little
Right.
suspicious?
Or
I,
you run into, and I know these are really crazy ideas, but like for me, it's always a fun time to bring those characters or those monsters that you never see, right? Those are the so much
oh
fun, and you
yes.
give them experience or you give them life on top of it. So drop a dragon in there that's actually friendly. Like watch the players freak out when he's just talking to them like they're just everyday people, or the talking. What are those things called? The talking skulls, those giant death skulls,
Oh yeah, I
like
think they're just called flame skulls,
the
right?
flame skulls now. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, or some of the weird creatures that you'll never see. The flump, like
Oh
they're
my
just
god, I love
weird.
the flump.
They're so weird looking creatures, but they're just so much fun to play with, and they all come with their own mechanics and their own
I think
like
we wrote like
story.
a short adventure that had to do with the flump locking people in like a time loop because it didn't want something it loved to decay. It was so long ago, but it was the
Yeah.
most interesting thing is it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't trying to start
Right.
shit.
Yeah.
It just is like, oh, this thing I love is like falling apart. I'm gonna stop it. And it basically was
Just
recycling time, but it was affecting a bigger
everything.
area around
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So the adventurers go in, man, what's going on? Oh man,
Yeah.
this we gotta kill. Well, no, man, it just doesn't want to lose the thing it
Doesn't want to
treasures.
lose its friend. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be there, right? That's what I said. It wouldn't leave.
And I
So
think
cute.
that you at that point, that's a, it's a really fantastic point that you make is that, you know, you can take a more classic approach and add little twists in it that bring out the role play and
Oh
still let
yeah.
people get their dungeon crawl on, you know?
Yep.
I know that there's always, and this is just my perception and it's very anecdotal, but there's always this perception that if you do like a dungeon delve or a dungeon crawl, that it's just, purely, combat or whatever,
Hmm.
but it really doesn't have to. I think, I don't know if you're familiar with the five room dungeon,
Yep.
which is just a powerful tool for game masters to structure their adventures in a way that makes sure that you're tackling more than just the role play, more than just the
Hmm.
combat, and an easy way to build. Now, five room is typically five room. If those of you that are listening or watching later don't know, but it's basically a structure of telling a story for your adventure and allows you to
Right.
hit on these myriad of different things. So you can take, once again, a straightforward adventure and make it interesting just by answering a few of these sort of strategies for the five rooms. So
Yeah, the other thing I tell people all the time, especially with dungeons, like if you've got a giant dungeon, like you're trying to piece together, let's say some of the old ones, like Tomb of Annihilation,
Mhm.
or like right now we're working in Icewind Dale, and some of these dungeons are like 40, 50
Oh
rooms.
my God.
Cut them in pieces, right? Like, and run a storyline that you know is going to drive your players through a few of the rooms. In some of the rooms, if you read through the description and you're like, my players are not going to care about this at all, skip it. Be done with it.
Yeah,
Don't worry
absolutely.
about it. They look in the room, there's nothing of importance. There's there's stuff thrashed over the all over the ground. Move on. Or better yet, collapse the fucking room. Like, who cares?
I like that.
Like,
Time to run.
seriously.
It's,
For
Come on,
me,
Pookie,
it's
it's all
just,
coming down on us. Let's get out of
yeah.
here.
Or, when they open the door, the wall's already fallen over. Like, just so that they're not sitting there wasting their time doing investigation checks and all that craziness. Just don't push them through those rooms. If you know they're not going to be enjoyable for your players, just get rid of them. It's so much easier.
One of the things that we used to talk about extensively on the show is, as hard as it is, leaving an index card and asking your players what they liked and what they didn't like.
Oh yeah, feedback
And
cards. Right.
yeah, they it's such a simple concept,
Yeah.
but it truly allows you to understand what your players want. And I'm going to give you a really good example. I have a
Sure.
player who absolutely just loves the tabletop gridded, detailed combat.
Oh yeah.
I ain't got time for that shit. But because I know that he's passionate about it, when we do like the bigger boss fights,
Mm-hmm.
one of the last campaign we it's not the last one, it's 3 campaigns ago. Holy shit.
Yeah.
We did Storm King's Thunder, and I hated the way the end of it ended. So I changed it into a ship on ship battle with the dragon
yeah.
flying over top, and they're fighting the giants, they're fighting the dragon. It's all kind of twisted, but I didn't want to have to try to portray that in the theater of the mind. So I printed off these massive, sheets of paper of these ships, and I had a big 4.5 8 by table, and we were literally turning the sheets to represent the ships in the battle.
The movement of the ship and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
and I did that because I knew that that's something that he really would love.
He specifically would enjoy. Yeah, and I'm sure at the end of that session, he was all ear, like smile all the way to both ears. So
And even not just him, the other team really enjoyed it too.
Yeah.
But that took so much prep. I don't have the time.
So you do
that all
mostly
the
theater of the
time.
mind.
I would say I do about 80% theater of the mind.
Okay.
I recently delved into using hex crawls to
Okay.
track exploration. And
I haven't touched hex crawl yet. That's one of the ones I'm staring away from. I like
Why?
to, if I'm traveling, I like to better off just let my players pick a location and they're traveling, and then we'll do some sort of vignettes throughout the travel,
I do like vignettes.
rather than actually breaking out a hex crawl and be like, pick where you're heading. Like,
So
especially on a stream, because I don't. That's just another thing I have
do
to figure out
understand
back
that
on the
concern.
stream.
I understand that concern very, very well. But there is one small benefit that comes to having a hex crawl. And I don't, maybe hex crawl isn't the right word, right?
Yeah,
But the traditional hex
a
grids,
big map so
Yeah.
that you can see the distance and stuff.
one of the benefits of it is you're constantly reminded of areas that nobody knows about or aren't explored.
Mm.
Have a easy way to go from one type of biome to the next, because you can change the representation of a hex. So one hex might be an entire desert, or maybe 2 hexes side by side are a desert, and you have to try to get around it. Well, how
Right.
much time are they going to have to travel? Well, sure, we can wave away some of that, but if you really like to delve into war, or you have players that really like the exploration aspect, my wife's just getting home, so the dogs might get kind of noisy.
You're good.
It gives a visual representation to scratch that itch, even if you don't use it all the time.
Right.
Even once in a while, hey, you're in this hex, this is the city, the world you're in, and
Yeah.
when they start to travel, you just move it. Like what we did is we pinned one up on the wall, and I just put a pin there. Here's where you're at. And when
Right.
they travel, they might go 4, 5, or 6 hexes to the east.
Yeah.
We're not stopping at every single one.
I might play around with that because I have the Icewind Dale, because that's what we're running right now for our stream.
Okay.
And you can pull up 10 towns, which is just a little area, but then they've
Yep.
got the giant one, and you can hex that easily just on a hex grid real fast. So I could probably do that with no issue. and it might make it easier for my players to understand how long it's going to take them to get to each town.
All right, so now you're getting to the big thing that I loved about hex crawls that I didn't ever really consider. And I know this is going to sound, to any game master who doesn't use it, it's going to sound ridiculous and
Overused? Or
yes,
over,
or,
yeah.
I don't know, overuse the right term. It's going to sound
No.
ridiculous. We ignore travel time.
Mhm.
And I'm not just saying because we waive it, but the opportunities that come with that. And have you played Crown of Magisters by chance?
Mm-mm.
So Crown of Magisters released before Baldur's Gate and is a 5th edition game.
Okay.
And something that it does is it has, when your characters travel from zone to zone, there is a hex map. And what's interesting is you're not watching your character, travel,
Yeah.
But what it does is it say, okay, 1 day of travel, and then there's a little list. What did your character do during that journey? I whittled something out of wood. Well, what did you whittle? Oh, a little tiny horse. Give me I think a survival or a sleight of hand or whatever check you want to do.
Right.
Oh, it turned out really good. You might be able to get some money for that. What
Right.
did you do? The bard was inspiring people with what? Well, I wrote a new song. And so you basically now end up with this list of
downtime.
stories during those downtime events that really in the game, it's basically going around the table once and asking them what their character did during that travel.
Right.
And it pulls out the role play aspects of their character. Why are you? I didn't know you whittled stuff out of wood. I was like, oh yeah, my dad. It's something my dad taught me or my mom. Or
Right.
and it would steamroll into these entire conversations that were only prompted by what does your character do to pass the time during this travel. And
Right.
occasionally I would roll to see if they
Something
get ambushed
happens.
or something.
Right.
Or maybe it wasn't even an ambush. One of the more exciting ones that we ended up doing was, I was like, okay, I want to write a list of random encounters that aren't combat. And one that came up, what would be in this? There's some ice to the south and there's a mountain to the north. Maybe there's two dragons duking it out, and that was the encounter. When it happened, I narrated the scene of these dragons flying back and forth, blasting each other, a full-on aerial dogfight with these things.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything about it.
And you're just, I'm just popcorn and watching the fight, but it's a lot. You're right, and it makes the world feel bigger, in my opinion. And I'm actually going to be using. You might see that pop up on our stream here this year.
Yeah, I definitely, and that's one of the things that.
Because right now we're in a small area because we're just working within Caer Konig, which is just one of the towns, and they haven't started traveling to towns. So I might, if I have enough time, put a little hex grid together and be like, okay, at least if I can figure out how much a hex size is, then I can say, okay, you're using a sled dog, which means you can get through 3 or 4 hexes in a day. So we can kind of see very quickly how many days it takes you to get to a location. And
here's where you push it to the next level. If you make those different biomes, you're letting them choose the environment they end up in. Mm-hmm. So now obviously that's a little easier for bigger areas, but even small areas, hey, if you guys, these are your routes and these hexes you can take. You can go this way, or this way. This way, you can tell it's known for being sandy and there's sand pits and traps. Over here, it's a little marshy. It's not exactly a smooth sail. And then this other one is a smooth sail.
Yeah,
they're gonna say, well, what the hell's wrong with the smooth sailing direction? Why we walk across the
you tell me what's wrong with it,
right? Or take the quick path.
Yeah.
Well, that gives them the power of choice. Maybe those players, one of them is a Gloomstalker, one of them is a ranger that specializes in desert travel.
Yeah.
So you are now setting up those opportunities for those sorts of abilities to show up. And all you do is write what goes there. You don't have to prep anything because you don't have to prep until they go that direction.
Yeah, no, completely.
I think that, and once again, it's not meant to be this thing that's just a slow trug. It's just a timeline.
Right. Yeah. Right? And I like like I said, I think I like the idea of the whole, especially on a stream, because that's where roleplay is so heavy, right?
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think it'd be fun to be like, okay, you guys are heading to this town, so I can draw out 3. It looks like it's going to take you 3 days to get there. So what are you each doing for those 3 days?
Yeah.
Or day 1, what are you doing? Day 2, we'll vignette it because something actually happened, and then day 3, what are you doing? And these kind of things like that.
I would challenge you even more. Instead of say, what are you doing? Say, what does your character do to pass the time? Because now you're fishing for something. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, and at least in my experience, when you say what are you doing, most people are going to think, oh, they're just cleaning their armor or whatever. But what
Yeah.
does your character do to pass the time? What is the thing that they do to entertain themselves? If you have a jester or a bard, it might just
Right.
be they're writing a song for their next thing. Well, that gives me as the game master a tool to reach out and say, okay, they're writing this song. They're this. What is that? Can you tell me a little bit about what it is? Is it a love song? Is it an upbeat,
Mhm.
battle inspiration? Is it something new that people haven't heard? Because now I can set up opportunities in the future where that can become that can be paid off, right?
Right.
And the same goes for like criminal rogues, Well, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Are you plotting something? Are you constantly looking over your shoulder? What are you doing to pass the time? Well, I scout because I've got people after me, Tell us that story. Tell us, delve into that. Set
Mhm.
up opportunities for like their bonds and flaws during these things to really show out.
Right. Yeah. 100%. No, and I
Can't go
love
that
that.
way. I'm afraid of swamps. Why? Because I almost, drowned because
Yeah,
tentacles
drowned when
dragged
I
me
was a
down or some
kid. You
shit.
know, oh, what
Yeah.
happened? Oh, well, this
Yeah.
happened. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and it's fun because those are just asking questions, and then you're letting the players completely tell the story at that point.
and
Um,
that is so much less work on us.
yeah, exactly. So much less.
I'm a
Uh,
big fan.
yeah, I love it because like my favorite point when I'm ever GMing, if I can just sit here like this and be
Mhm.
completely silent, and I'm just listening to everybody talking, I'm just like, oh, we're burning 30 minutes of you guys just bantering back and forth, and I'm just writing down little notes saying, well, we'll enter this in
It-
3 weeks.
and
This might
that is
show
the
up in a
best
week.
aspect, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're engaged in the game that has you pulled away from them, which means they're talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates passion, that creates engagement,
Right.
and it spurs them to be more and more in character. And
Right.
ironically enough, that's when we're the least involved.
Yeah. Hands
And
off.
those are some of the best aspects of the game, I think. And
Right.
so this sort of travel strategy kind of allows for that opportunity. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, taking Crown of the Magisters into consideration, they did it very well. They're not saying you need to give me your whole life story. Give me 1 or 2 sentences. That's
Yeah.
it. But then you can have one person track that log. When we traveled here, you know, Bishop whittled a horse out of wood, right?
Yeah.
It's
And it's
simple tasks
crazy
like that.
because I'm gonna kind of brag on some of my players, but we have a player he's a concept artist in his
Ooh,
real job. So
awesome.
this man draws like within like this. So he gives us 3 images in concept format every episode,
Oh,
and they're full scenes. Like it's not
that's
just like,
fantastic.
and then he'll clean them up, and then we put them as part of our Be Right Back now, so that people can follow the story based on those images. But like I've watched him, and he's like, oh, right before break, he's like, oh, I got this I can show you, and it's like almost done. It's not even like small image. It's ridiculous.
It's very detailed.
But he's
I
just
was
so fast.
and those are the types of play you want to find a way to reward that, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but and any other game masters out there that are listening, but one of the best things that I found, if you've got somebody with a unique talent like that in your games,
Mhm.
find a way to help them create something for the story to showcase that skill set.
Right.
I was lucky that I had an artist in ours, and I would ask him occasionally, hey, I need some sort of document that's a wanted poster of this guy. Here's the 3 details I needed. Everything else is up to you. What the text says, who wrote the text, and what the image looks like. And so I no longer had to come up with the hook,
Yeah.
the enemy,
You
or
just
the NPC.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're like, I'm just gonna hand this off tonight. Like, here you go, you take care of it.
But it
Uh,
not only did it reduce my workload, it let him showcase his skills and be
yeah,
involved in the story in a way that normally I wouldn't involve him.
right,
Now I twisted it a little bit so that it fit what I needed, but for the most part, it was as that player intended.
right.
And I think it's easy to forget sometimes that our players are just as amazing, if not, in my opinion, better storytellers than some of us.
Oh yeah,
And I don't know that they realize, I think we did a whole episode on this once, of just how much storytelling power the players have. Now, That's a caveat. Is
I was like, not every GM.
I
The
was gonna
host.
say some dungeon masters are anal retentive and don't let them have any input in certain things. But there's certain things that a game master cannot ignore.
Right.
If I walk up to you and you've designed this really intricate NPC, we're gonna go traditional here, an innkeeper.
Right.
You probably have detailed out certain things,
Yeah.
right? But highly unlikely you've identified everything. So if I walk up and turn to you and say, yeah, so I'm going to walk up to an innkeeper and I'm looking to write a new story for inspiration for a love song. Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me about your passion, your relationships, love won, love lost? I'm very interested. And now, what are the odds the game
I'm
masters?
pulling this straight off the top of my head, like at max. Like I'm not, and it's not going to be great. Like,
but and that's okay. But
right.
in that moment, those answers did not exist.
Right.
The player prompted a required response, which
Right.
then makes it part of the world.
Right. Yeah.
And that shows how much power they have that can't always be ignored, even if you have a very anal, this is my world. Well, no, if they ask you a question, you provide an answer.
Yeah, you have to give an answer. That. Yeah. And I've done both. Like stream most of the time, if it's something like that, I'll control it with my character, like, or with whatever the NPC is. In my home games, I'm ruthless. I'll look straight back and say, "What is it? Wait, what? What's the story? What's the story this innkeeper is telling you?"
Oh my goodness, dude! You beat me to it.
I do questions all the time to players. We actually, because I get tired of, because there's. And this is something I noticed that you sent me, and I'm looking really excited to look into it and see what all you sent me. But this year, when we're playing through Icewind Dale, my home game, I've put a lot more pressure on my players because all of them picked things they wanted to be able to do during their downtime, and then I told them, well, you need to come up with how. Don't tell me, like, tell me what you're looking to do and what ingredients you need to find. Like,
love it.
Because I was tired. Because for me, I think the downtime that's shown in Xanathar's is it's lackluster.
It's. I understand why that is.
Yes.
They wanted to empower the game masters. The problem is not everyone is experienced enough to be able to fill that role with that sort of, I can make this up and design it how I want.
Right.
That also runs the risk of leading to inconsistencies between tables. So that's kind of a battle that 5th edition has to deal with, and because of that, they try to keep these very narrow scope on certain things and not let it get too complicated.
Because the one I told people straight up, like, if we're running some of these downtime things, I was like, we're gonna have to come up with our own way of doing things, because creating magical items in Xanathar's is just time and money. There's no connection to it whatsoever. And when I was a young game master, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know what all I was actually giving players when they did that. And I had a character who figured out, because he was a war gamer and a min-maxer, like, to the T. So he's wandering around with like 9 wands as a wizard, just shooting wands at people, like, because he's like, I don't have to burn my spells. Like, I was like, really? Like, that's what you're doing? He's like, oh, yeah. So he had like a wand of shield, a wand of alacrity, like 3 wands of magic missile, and he's like, oh, I pop all 9 at one shot. And I was like, Jesus.
That reminds me of a druid. So on our show, we broke one part of the show was all game master tips, player tips, monsters, new monster stuff you could bring, new magic items, whatever. And one of the character concepts that came up, I don't remember if one of our team members created or if it was submitted, but it was basically a druid hoarder that hoarded everything and made his staff out of like the things he found.
Yeah.
And some of those things were magic items that he would collect through the adventure. And you would forget he had these things till he would point his staff at him and cast a spell. Well, he's not really casting a spell. He's reflavoring the way his magic items work.
Right.
So he would take like, what's a good example? Thorn Whip. Very, very common druid cantrip, right?
Yep.
And so everything would come out from a staff. So he would he treated it as if he didn't have power. The staff had power. So he'd stab the thing in there and a whip tender would come out and yank somebody. But then after he got another magic item, he just attached it to the end of his staff. He basically had a massive weapon of destruction, which throughout all the roleplay and everything was great. until it got stolen, because that's the type of douchebag GM I am. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, so all your power is in this thing. What
Right.
happens if it gets taken?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think
Right.
about that.
No, and, and obviously I didn't use that to cause too much trouble,
Right.
but it really exemplified the flaw character of that.
Yeah.
And I think that when you do stuff like that, when you take a character concept that they've kind of created and you can, you know, leverage that as part of your story, doing fun character concepts and stuff like that really does add games.
Yeah,
And
or like the orc wizard who really doesn't have any powers, and he's just got a bag full of crap that he just pulls out. Like he's like, oh, you know, magic missile, and he just like pulls out like 3 rocks and throws it. Like,
Belinda has an absolutely fantastic point. That's like putting money in the mattress and having the house burnt down that bit. And it's true, but that I only did that because that was such a reiterating character strategy, and it was only for a short time.
Right.
But how are you gonna carry this thing around that's unlimited cosmic power and not expect somebody to try to swipe it?
Yeah. I love the same thing when people start flaunting money. Like I might hand money out all like just like candy, right? And then they start spending it like candy, you know, buying people drinks at the bar, buying up extra rooms, getting bigger stuff. And I'm like, so let's see, when does the organization that likes money randomly actually notice what's happening?
I got one better for you then.
Sure, go for it.
So that's a great approach. Hey, this organization, there's a lot of money floating around. I'm gonna do something about it.
Right.
One thing we don't think that, at least once again, I say we as in my experience is anecdotal, right?
Right,
so,
right, got it.
Is based on my fans and all the other stuff that I've talked to or people I've played with. But
yeah,
we never consider the ramifications of an influx of that much money into a local small economy. So I think in one of our episodes, the whole Game Master tip was about how you can destabilize an entire region just from the money that the adventurers flaunt around. Oh, here's a gold piece. Are you serious? And you ain't gonna tell me that somebody ain't gonna try to swipe that from somebody that just went from being broke ass poor in the dirt to having a gold piece?
So that's funny you say that, because that's kind of where we're hold on, let me make sure I don't have certain people in the channel. I don't see any of my players right now. Good. No, so that's something that we were talking about, because Icewind Dale is already a survival-based area. And we have one of our characters who, without full acknowledgement, didn't realize how much money they were given on their backstory. And they're just dropping money. And I'm like, and like sometimes you'll get like the innkeeper who's like, whoa, no, I don't need this much. Like, like take that gold piece back. Your room is a silver. Like, take this crap. I don't need it. And then you've got other times where you know the innkeeper does, or not the innkeeper, but let's say one of the general store owners is like, oh, gold piece, yeah, that's how much that is. Like just because you don't know the economy yet, because you have only been there for a few days. Yeah, no, destable.
Not the Hilton.
What's that?
You're Belinda says you're in 10 towns, not the Hilton.
Right, exactly. It's exactly that point. And it's interesting because the way we're playing before the rhyme is even activated. So stress is not there yet. My players know that it's coming. They just don't know when I'm dropping it on them, because everybody's like, "Oh, the rhyme. When's the rhyme happening?" And I was like, "You'll find out. Don't worry."
All right. So I'm gonna give you some love-hate relationship for your players right now.
Sure.
I don't remember exactly what the book said how to handle it, but I changed some of the mechanics. One of the things I'm a big fan of is sapping vitality. And people say, well, what do you mean by that, Justin? Well, it's easy to lose hit points and then recover them. I would call for survival checks, and if they failed, usually survival, con, whatever it is, they would lose hit dice instead of hit points. So
Yeah.
it doesn't affect the next combat, but it impacts their ability to recover over time.
Right.
And if you follow the rules, you can only recover half of your hit dice
on a
during
long
long
rest.
rests. So
unless you're in I believe unless you're in a comfortable location, and then you can
Mhm.
get full. So like you have to stay at an inn in order to get like the full hit die.
And something like Icewind Dale, that's not always going to be the case.
Mm-mm.
And on top of that, if you have to make a save and don't have any hit die, you save against a level of exhaustion. And because one of the things I felt, and this is just was my perception of the reading, is I wanted it to be more dangerous. I wanted it to. I'm going to freeze my ass to death if I don't take precautions. Falling to the ice should be a near death sentence for some.
Yeah,
and it almost
avalanches,
oh,
blizzards. Like there's some really nasty things in Icewind Dale that have to be, because like a lot of mine, I'm telling people left and right, like if you're not going out, like even the first episode we played, not as soon as they went out to walk out, I was like, do you have cold weather gear? Well, what do you mean? Like we're talking cold. Like
you ever been outside in your undies in the middle of winter? Because it's
like, colder
than that.
Yeah, like we have one of our players who's playing a character who was from the south, and I was like, you're gonna freeze, like cold. And then I tell people, I was like, I'm also rolling on my own personal table that says, does the temperature continue to drop? Does the temperature get worse? Are we adding precipitation this session, or this day? Because I think that's one thing that people don't utilize enough is weather, the environment.
Amen, brother. And that comes back to the other benefit that I love about a hex crawl. So if you do a hex map, you can overlay the areas of what the condition is. A couple white dots, it's a blizzard. A couple little water dots, it's raining or it's foggy, and it becomes a visual reminder, one. And secondly, it shows that the world changes around you. Some people, you're right, a lot of people don't use the environment to their
but for somewhere like where extreme weather is a thing in Icewind Dale, like you have to, because otherwise I feel like you're running through, like we're in what would consider like Santa's North Pole at that point, because like there's nothing really happening. It's cold and it's snowy. No, these are bad.
Yeah, right. If you're walking and the earth splits open and part of the land breaks apart, and now because somebody cast a fireball spell or something, it cracks it open, splits it, and by the time they make the track back, there's now a giant gap where they need to traverse that wasn't there before.
Right. 100%.
That or a thunderstorm or a lightning storm, splits the environment. Yeah. And to your point with the weather, as game masters, there's other benefits we can do that as well. One of my favorites is the storm, right? I make lightning spells do more damage in a thunderstorm. It becomes and now I get a little, people give me a hard time because it's a little bit out there, but I was like, magic just flows through the air. Sometimes shit just happens. During a thunderstorm, if somebody uses a very powerful lightning magic, I now might start the top of the round with a lair action that has just been triggered by the mix of the real storm and the arcane power in the air, and so now people are dodging,
the entirety of the room now is dodging lightning bolts. So it makes sense. Especially, like I said, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but if you've read some of Icewind Dale, so there are things underneath the water and underneath the ice that could definitely affect that as magic is moved. So
there are comforts that players get used to just hand waving certain things. We had Anne Gregerson on one of our shows who wrote Alkian's Guide to the Apocalypse, and the entire book focuses on how to use 5th edition to run a campaign where survival is hard. And she did it in a way that it's not just that you stripped away some magics that allow you to create and destroy water or just create food, but terrain altering events make it hazardous and make it dangerous. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the more tradition. I'm going to go on an adventure and go into the cave and go down and fight some rats and some goblins. And we forget that the world changes. The characters aren't always the biggest, baddest motherfuckers out there. And what happens when a level 20 mage and some dark lich start fighting? What is going to be the side effects of that? Even if it's not impacting the players themselves, it's going to impact the world around them.
Right, 100%.
And the same thing with wars, part of fantasy is the constant struggle between realms. How do the characters learn about that? Oh, well, it's in the backstory. It's like, but we can, as game masters, we can use the environment to tell that story. Oh, you can't go that way because the pass was blocked off because an ambush from one kingdom tried to, drop barrels of rum and fire and grease, and it messed the whole thing up. You can't go that way.
Yeah,
has nothing to do with the players. You got to find another path.
Yeah.
But they've learned something. They've learned that battle is real, that it's ongoing, whether they're there or not, and becomes an absolutely powerful way to, push that sort of story. Got a lot of people in the.
Yeah, we are. We got some
really
people chiming. But
trying to keep up.
Yeah, trying to just, getting people a little bit updated on what's going on. Makes players wonder, will villagers trust them if they know the player can just blow up a house at will?
That's an interesting concept.
The other option, like you said, you don't know who's there, right? So, and this is one thing I've always done for years and years and years since I've been game mastering is there's always going to be that one or two NPCs that you have built in a town that are way outclassed anything else that's in that town. So the random, mumbling goblin who runs the magic shop, you don't realize it, but he's actually like a level 17 who just decided, I'm done fighting anymore. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. And then they try to cutthroat him or steal from him, and he's like,
find out the hard way.
Like, really, does this really what you want to do? Like,
because they do get overconfident because they are the very small minority of strong, but they're not the only thing. And I always make it akin to when I start with new players. I always tell them, this is not a video game. If you go one direction and you hear tales from the locals of, don't go over there because the big monster devours.
I'm telling you stuff,
people.
There's a reason. Like, don't try to fool. The other thing I tell people is I said, plan your like attacks based on population too, because like if you're thinking about it, I'm gonna take 10 towns because it's the one I'm working in right now, but like the night guard or whatever are going to be a lot less leveled in Caer Konig than they are in Bryn Shander, which is the capital of 10 towns. Like, my goal, I tell people all the time, I was like,
more money,
you've got more money, you've got more defenses, an everyday guard in Bryn Shander is probably 5 or above, where Caer Konig, it probably could literally be a CR1 guard. It's super simple. But it doesn't also mean that, the marshal isn't the level 15 that just decided he was tired of shit and just wanted to live in his nice little town because his wife and kids live there. Like, I will make sure that not everybody dies in a town. That's just dumb in my opinion.
You're very generous. One of my favorite things to do is when players undoubtedly do terrible things, is my vendors start seeing their ruggedly looking similar pictures of themselves, or if they become, I don't want to say bad because it's not always that they're bad, but they don't do things that are wouldn't really be kosher with the people. Eventually people are gonna get tired of that. My NPCs have hired other adventurers to deal with the bandits and the thugs that turned out to be my players because of the actions they take, because that's the way the world will perceive their action.
Well, and they have a full like, it's crazy because it's the only thing I've really, really, really liked is there's some really unique mechanics inside of Rime of the Frost Maiden, and I was like, I'm adding this to other games completely.
Absolutely.
So like, I forget the 3 different star thing, but it's like friendliness, it's comfort, and there's another one. I'm gonna pull it up on my screen here while we're BSing, but those are unique to me because it's like each town has its own
Mm-hmm.
feel of, well, really, this town's not gonna like you very much anyways because the reputation of adventurers coming to this town might not be the most thought after thing.
Right.
And I don't like to like completely just give that away from people. Oh yeah, here it is. It's friendliness, services, and comfort. If
Mm-hmm.
you've got a low services town, you're not going to find potions. You're not going to find magic items. You might not even be able to find a masterwork weapon.
Right. Right.
You know, friendliness. You walk into a town, you're probably going to be able to talk to whoever you really want. You've got unfriendly groups, then you're going to start feeling and if you've got like a level one, like if let's do a 3-tier system, you've got a number 1 in friendliness.
Mm-hmm.
People ain't gonna talk to you. People don't want to. They're not gonna look at you. We're gonna look like it's gonna look like freaking New York City, where everybody's just.
You mind your own damn business. I'll mind mine. We'll just get to where we're going. All right. Maybe we'll all make it through this shit. And that's a really good thing you touched on there. There was I don't know if you're familiar with any of Loresmith's products.
Yeah, actually, I have like 3 or 4 of them.
Do you have the guild Remarkable Guilds one?
I think I have it in PDF somewhere.
Yeah. So Remarkable Guilds and their heroes, and their remarkable cults and their followers. Those are some of my favorite books because they did exactly what you just said. Is there's details in kind of like these little charts that Chris did that categorizes what's expected within that location. It tells you the types the types of services, the money that's involved, all those things. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty sure those books came out before Wizards of the Coast, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, oh, that's a good idea, we should do that shit.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But when we're building out our worlds and stuff, thinking about those sorts of things should impact the way the characters are perceived, the way the game unfolds. I'll add that link if it'll share it. It says stop posting links, whatever. That's the link for anybody that's interested. I love promoting other content.
Same.
People's work. So
I'm just recopying and I'll post it now.
That's fine.
Up there.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. It's a Nightbot's a douche.
Yeah, yeah, Nightbot's just a pain in the ass.
But those sorts of things and those considerations will make you a better game master.
Oh, 100%.
If you're not thinking about that stuff, you're not gonna behave that way. Yeah. I know we as game masters, we always say, and that one rolling for adding links. Damn, I lost my train of thought. Oh, as game masters, we don't think to ask those questions. We talk about it. Oh, yeah, you want to think about what are the motives and what are all these things. But when you break it down to, if I just put 4 categories, is theft, what is the ranking of theft? How much values is it? What services does it offer? And what condition are the people in? Are they?
Yeah, there's a couple. So Loresmith has a couple of them, and I'm trying to think. There's another book company that does the same thing, but they have a different set of these things. And the one is like Spectacular Settlements or something.
Settlements. Yep, I got that. We covered that. Good one too.
That one's awesome. So that if you really want to build a town, that's like a perfect way to do it, and it's full rollout. They did another one, Dangerous Destinations. That was an awesome one.
Nord Games. Another Chris. Both of those Chris Haskins and they do some phenomenal work.
I was sad to see Loresmith close their doors for a little while.
Yeah,
at least
he's going in a different direction, and I don't. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's exhausting.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, no, I've talked to Chris before, and he's a good guy.
He reached out to me. I'm like, dude, I don't have. I want to help. I want to, but because he's got like I don't know a lot of money just sitting in buildings.
Yeah.
Right now, so
yeah.
Hopefully he can find a purchaser or something. But anyways. So there's some really good resources out there as game masters, and I think that any of you that are watching are looking to get better. Obviously, watching Tabletop Misfits is a good direction to go. Checking out some of the world's best writers are in these third-party content. One of my favorite writers that I love hiring, and if I could afford to hire him more often, he'd be the only one I would hire. JVC JVC Perry wrote Call of the Deep, which is hands down better than anything officially published, hands down.
I mean,
And
I can plug a couple. So my shirt kind of gives it away mostly, but Gooey Cube is a company out of Colorado Springs that I've been writing for now 3 years.
what's it
And,
called? Gooey Cube?
Gooey Cube.
I love that name.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
So, and I'll plug it tonight because we just brought it up. So they're doing a Kickstarter here in the next month,
Mhm.
and it's probably one of the biggest Kickstarters that will
Holy
drop.
shit.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest Kickstarters that's going to drop this year. Not even gonna lie.
That is huge.
So, just to kind of talk about that, the Kickstarter this year is called the Tomb of Geisengax, to give homage to the 50 years of D&D. And when I say they've brought some celebrities into the puzzle piece, I'm not even playing around.
Yeah.
So the main writers, of course, is going to be Gooey Cube, but there is going to be a big name and a big family of names that are helping to write that entire story, including Luke himself. So his entire family is part of the NPC crew. His dad's a part of the NPC
That's
crew.
cool as hell.
So I posted that up in the channel for people that are really interested in looking at it.
Yeah, you got me. I'm already looking through the merch.
Yo, I'm
Through
telling
the work.
you, they picked me up about 2020, and then I got my opportunity to write my first published module in 2022.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I've written a bunch of little pieces of some of their lore stuff at this point.
Amazing.
But
Well, congratulations. That's exciting.
yeah, it was awesome. So if you're looking specifically for mine is called The Witch's Wrath. It was a story. It's
I see that here.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. Wrote that one for Gen Con last year, the year before. I can't remember which one I ran it on.
Very cool.
But yeah, Geisengax is gonna be the pinnacle this year, because it's not even showing what's inside it, because there was an imagery that showed how many special people are going to be a part of this.
Mhm.
And the names, just any name I rattle off, people are going to be like, there's no way, and it's absolutely incredible what they've got working. So you've got Margaret Weiss created a character, Ed Greenwood created a character, Stefan Picorni created a character, Luke, his wife, their 3 kids, his dad. The names just continue. I can't even find the stupid
Margaret
email.
Weiss is the one that was one of the Dragonlance creators?
Dragonlance writers, yep. So she created a character, bunch of others. If anybody who's Gooey Cube is in the channel right now, and they can link that to show exactly all the craziness that is building on that.
I love this. This is cool.
And this really is the cool thing I like about Gooey Cube, that you don't see anywhere else other than one other spot. And I'm sorry to say, they're just, in my opinion, they're still Hasbro to a point where I'm not as much excited about it. Beto and Grimm does a great job at bringing Hasbro games and giving them life.
Oh yeah?
With a price. Like, with a price. Like, you got to think, their platinum boxes go for somewhere between $300 and $400. Like, it's ridiculous money. Gooey Cube does the same thing, only they do it in their own home world, and everything's a lot cheaper. Like, I can get a box set for I think $80, and that's going to give me my module. That's going to give me a Game Master book, which allows me to just add more to it. It's going to give me scene cards, NPC cards, item cards, crit cards, like 24 character portfolios. Like, it's a ton, and it's in one box, and
I love the classic design on one of these. Is that classic? I think is that the Dungeon Master's Guide's little demon holding the bowl. So the
yeah. So that was so that's part of the whole Guys and Gags thing. So everything is going to homage, Luke and his family and all that. So they're actually running. So the two it's kind of a funny spoiler, but like the 2 towns that are going to be in it are. And I'm not going to pronounce it right, but it's like omelet, but it's backwards. And
Omelet?
then Yeah, because that's what they created, right? Hamlet is part. It was the original town for like one of the original modules in second or in first edition. So they just anagram both of these small towns to put them backwards, and I can't remember what it's called exactly, but yeah, Ithome. Yep, yeah, Ithome is one of them. Belinda, thank you. She's another gooey friend of ours, so she's. But yeah, and then Blum is another one, and it's like Num or like Nub or something like that is what they're calling it now. So they're goofy things, but they actually homage to something that's very, you know, sentimental for people who have been playing for 50
Right.
years. So, but
So as a writer and a game master, what are some of your favorite tools that you use to either improve your process or make things simpler, or as a whole just make your GMA experience better?
for right now, a lot of my stuff I'm using third party in a lot of stuff. So I love the return of the lazy dungeon master.
Oh yeah,
Like
it's a good
super
one.
simple way to just grow a story very fast and to be able to do it quickly.
Mhm.
Another one is any of these books. I'm gonna grab this book real quick. See if I can not die at the same time. This
Thanks,
series,
Philip.
this series to me is probably one of my favorite series
Oh yeah, yeah.
ever.
The random encounters book.
The random encounters, the random NPCs, the traps and puzzles, villains and something else, or it could just be villains. I don't remember, but the whole set is just great.
Definitely just all villains.
What's that?
It's definitely just all villains.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know. I just-
I love the traps and puzzles. Yeah, no, I love that one. The NPC one was really one of the ones I've been utilizing the most because
Mhm.
not what's in the book, but how they structure NPCs. Because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe I should add a moral to them, or maybe I
Oh
should
yeah.
add, you know, a little one-liner. Like this is one-liner that they're going to use all the time, just so that it connects when they see the player, you know, the monster or the NPC again. Um, the other thing I do is a lot of times is I'll make monsters NPCs, like just
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they have to have dialogue. Like anything that's intelligent has dialogue in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I don't treat. I know there's a traditional a difference between NPC and monster, but I've never
Mm-mm.
disseminated.
I have on certain things, like because
Unless
I
they're
use
beasts.
what's the book? Monsters Know What They're Doing.
Yep.
So yeah, so I
Oh
use
yeah, I
that
really like
kind
that
of as
book.
a dissemination on are they really NPCs or are they monsters? Because
Yeah.
like if you've got a 2 in intelligence, you're
Yeah, as I
probably not
say,
speaking.
usually if it's like a beast or it doesn't have intelligence, then it's going more on instinct than it
Yeah.
is on. But
Hmm.
if it's got any sort, I actually got into an argument on our show once with somebody about a character having a intelligence of a 6, and I told them, I was like, yeah, that makes them the same intelligence as a monkey. So they can't read, they can't write, they can't speak.
Yeah. They can do finger potion or finger puppets and that's about it.
And they may not even have the wherewithal to do that. They can fling poo. Like, I was in a discussion about how important intelligence is for a
Yeah.
character, and he's like, "Oh, I got a 6. I can't read." No, you can't read. You can't write. You can't do anything but fling poo and eat. That's about
Yeah.
all you got. And that
Yeah.
was a
And
really long discussion.
yeah,
But
I like to tell people, especially if you're building characters and you're trying to find a dump stat, make sure the dump stat actually makes sense. Like,
yeah,
don't drop your score below a 6, like please, because if it's physical based, you're having some serious detriment. If it's mental based, there's potential you don't even know how to talk. Like don't do that.
yeah,
Because I feel
that's
like they're
a
trying to at that point you're trying to min max to a point that makes no sense. And,
breaks it.
yeah.
Yeah, I do. And there was actually at one point. So I actually finally got away from rolling at my table, my home game,
Hmm.
because people have no problem rolling their stats as long as they end up high.
Hmm.
But as soon as they get a low one, they complain about it the entire
Oh,
time.
100%.
So I just got
I
done.
fixed that to a point, so it allowed the players to roll, but everybody has the same stats.
You have to work with the same setup. Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
So, well, no. So not what you're saying. So Dungeon Coach released a way of doing things a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe.
Mhm.
So you roll 5 of the 6 stats, and then the sixth stat is whatever you decide the total is for the crew. So the average is 72. So if you roll 5 of the stats and then whatever it equals to 72, that's what you get at the end. And that's how you can get either a really bad stat or a really good stat, because otherwise everything's going to kind of even out at the end of it. But we also have to have, you have to have caveats that, like, you can't get under a 6. Like, you can't only have 6 points left at the end, because otherwise it's going to be rough and people are going to have grumpiness. Proactive role-playing book was a really good book too. Yeah, I agree with that one.
You had mentioned you had looked at a different way of how characters are created, NPCs. I don't know if you've ever seen this book. I
can't see it as being, but
stupid screen.
What's that one called? Oh, I have seen that. I don't know what it's called, but I've seen it.
It's called the Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide.
Yes.
And here I'll share it with you.
Okay. Yep, got it. And then we're gonna.
It's nothing but sections and questions that help you think about characters. And even if you randomly open to 1 or 2 pages, you will develop a far more in-depth character. Like, if I just go to a random page, the title is "It's More Personal." Answer these prompts to fill the details about your character's greatest enemy. So now we're already talking about my character has an enemy. It says, what about the antagonist do you find frightening or repulsive?
Oh, so I've got a book for you then, because you like
dude,
this.
I mean, this is.
Yeah,
I keep throwing it there. If it's going to show, I'm not going to, but.
I'm gonna drop one too, and then we're gonna have to come down to like a final question. So if you have final questions for either me or Justin, make sure you're putting those in the channel right now, because we're about out of time.
Oh, we're that time went by.
This book here is something fun too. It's called
Session Zero System.
Session Zero System. So do you know who Gabriel Hicks is?
I do not.
So he wrote this. He's a TikTok streamer, all this stuff, and he's also become like an actual like celebrity GM. He's been on multiple shows, but he wrote a book that is 3 dice set. It's 3 sets of D&D D20s, and it's supposed to give you enough questions to create a good, solid backstory that gives more information to your GM than anything else. So you don't have to. It gives more fuel for the GM rather than it does for the player itself. So you're not building these crazy backstories that you're like, the GM is never going to be able to use this. Like, it makes no sense how you're already Batman and you're only level 1. Like, that stuff. And it's based in 3 points. So the 3 points are the bond, the catalyst, and the legacy. Yep. So the legacy is, of course, it's going to give you things like how your past started. The bond is what is the connections that you have, and then of course the catalyst is why are you going to be an adventurer. And I'm actually we're trying to see if people are interested. We're looking at doing a small form live show on Instagram with Erthos Creations, who was in here earlier today. I don't know if he had to go to bed already or not, but we're looking at doing this where we're just going to read we're going to roll 3 dice, we're going to see what we create, and we're going to see what kind of cool story we can come up with within, like, I don't know, 15 minutes, see what happens. But yeah, it's been really, this was a fun conversation. We might have to banter again sometime. This was a lot of fun.
I'm sure we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. And maybe you'll see me on his show someday. We'll see. I gotta get more popular, so there's that. So, but
we're gonna get there. We're all gonna become super famous and
super famous.
Superstar
the
famous. Be like
next set. We're the next set of people coming up. Another 5-10 years.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, but before we go, I just want to let them know. Kind of tell us what's happening over there at Crit Academy. And in the meantime, I know you've got a Kickstarter coming.
Yep.
And
so
whatnot.
One of the things that's happening here is I'm always trying to publish content. I love making content for game masters. I love making tools to make our jobs easier, but I also love to enhance our stories and campaigns. And I do that through a number of things. For a long time there, it was talking a lot, which is something I clearly can just do. And coming up with fun and inventive ways to make games better. That's why I started publishing to begin with, to be honest, is like I have all these millions of ideas bouncing around in my head that I've applied in my games that makes them better. So I finally just started writing them down. And
Smart
whether it's right, whether it's like our some of our newer content that we've released, like exotic equipment perks, for instance. I know everyone's played Baldur's Gate 3 and they've got the weapons thing. We did it first. I'm just making sure that that's out there. We did this like 6 years ago when we put out weapon perks first and then just did exotic equipment perks where each weapon feels unique, and armor actually, like the cloth armor has zero benefit except for with exotic perks, you can use it to pull off a part of it to make it a triage. That means if you roll a 19 or a 20 on your medicine check, they get a hit point. Stuff like that is just
right.
Those are the things that we've really enjoyed. So, but a lot of that stuff stems from my own games and my own tools that I've developed. And our newest upcoming Kickstarter is Sparkforge cards for NPCs and spell reagents. One thing that drives me nuts about my players is no matter how many times I expect them to bob, they always weave. And so I was always never prepared enough. And eventually I just got to the point where I just started doing bullet points.
That's what I do.
And so I started basically, building NPC cards that have, personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. And instead of giving them like specific names, I gave them general names and then decided what it was on the fly.
Yeah.
One of the NPCs we have might be the glowing and entertainer, right? So no matter what fantasy setting you're in, if you draw this card or pick this card for your NPC, it gives you the character story, and the description that you can narrate to provide your players, as well as a beautiful piece of artwork. But what it really comes down to is having being able to draw an NPC at any time to fill whatever role you need it to at that moment in time. And that was something that I would always struggle with, is I could do generators, but it would just say it's a halfling bard. Okay, well, that's not super helpful. I mean, it's more helpful than not having it, I guess. But having actual you talked about motivations and stuff, which is, part of that stuff stems from, things like this ultimate RPG book and all that stuff. But I wanted to make a tool that game masters would get benefit out repeatedly over and over and over. Like when you draw the haunted bard, you can keep that in your deck and you can draw it, and it could be a different character, different name, just has some of the same personality traits. But with 50 cards, the odds you're going to draw that when you need the same one is pretty low. What I ended up doing is I would draw one and I'd set it to the side until that adventure or campaign was over. But it's a very powerful tool for quickly inspiring story hooks. But the thing that I really like the most, and those are system agnostic in our Sparkforge, which is nice, but I love the exploration and pillar and lore pillars, but I don't feel like there was enough love given to those. And one of the things that I always really liked is giving my players temporary magic items. And so it ended up taking on the form of spell reagents. I wanted them to be able to use nature checks and arcana checks to identify objects in the world that could be used to boost magical power. Because we already have magical components that everyone chooses to ignore. And I wanted to bring some of that feeling back. And I got a whole roleplay reason why I love that, and I'm one of the few players that actually will go through to describe the actual spell components, because I think it makes this spellcasting more enjoyable.
Oh, it does, 100%. I mean, and you've seen, if you listen to any very well done podcast or stream, they do the same thing because it tells a story.
Yeah, and that's the part of it. I mean, people forget that.
And you can change it, right? Like you can functionally, or you can flavor change it so that it feels like it's yours. It's not somebody else's. Yeah. And
so that kind of led to the creation of these reagents. So I started with just flowers because that shit's everywhere, so it made sense. So like one of the examples I made was the Frost Lotus, which is I ended up giving the reagents rarities just like magic items, because they essentially are. If you identify what it is, you learn that the Frost Lotus is an icy white and blue petal flower that grows on frozen tundras. On rare occasions, they can be found at the top of frozen mountain peaks and appear after a frigid snowstorm. Well, what does that mean? Under an Arcana check, it may reveal that it can enhance frost-based spells. So
ice-based spells, yeah.
When you cast a spell of first level or higher that deals cold damage, you can add the Frost Lotus to the the spell's materials components. If you do, a target takes damage. If you do, and a target takes damage from the spell, they must succeed a Constitution saving throw, or their movement is reduced by half. And then they can repeat the saving throw. That's all it does. But if you end up in a situation, yes, and it also fills out a tactical perspective, because now you took like a more common one's the stupid Ray of Frost is minus 10 feet. That ain't hard to lead, diddly most times. But half your movement is a pretty big problem. So if your character saves this and uses it for the moment they need, more importantly, the game master knows it's there, puts a situation where they're fighting a speedy little bastard, and now this person who studied the Arcana and knew what this was can then shape it and improve their own strategies. And the more of these you collect, whether it's something harvested from nature or a claw from a ghoul, that if added to a spell that does psychic damages can cause them to go crazy and attack the nearest target.
Right.
And they go from uncommon to common to like legendary and stuff.
Right.
But it allows you to basically take these tarot cards now and seamlessly enhance the lore of the world and give some mechanical benefits. And it really revitalizes magic and spell casting as a whole. At least it did for our group. Which is why we're trying to bring it to other people.
No, it definitely has a real twist to it, which you don't always see. Sadly, we are up on time tonight, though. I know. Really, I've been really enjoying this chat, and I'm hoping we can find another time in the near future to do some more. Maybe we'll do a right before the Kickstarter or something for your Kickstarter. We'll go over and we'll do a chat that's based strictly around what you're getting ready to launch, and how you can utilize those in your next game. But thanks, Justin, for coming on board and just having a conversation with us. Hopefully everybody has gained something out of this. I know I've got a bunch of new ideas that I'm like, oh, look, I can use this, I can use that, I can use this. It's the reason I like doing this show, because I get to come up with new ideas all the time. So
I'm right there with you. That was one of the things that I was very passionate and I loved about being on a podcast and meeting with people. So I feel you, man.
Real quick, Justin, how can they find you?
Sure. You can head on over to critacademy.com. You can there you'll see all our wonderful little products. Even if you sign up to our newsletter where I send my blogs go and all those things, you'll actually get one of our best-selling products for free, as well as a collection of our favorite resources. You can find us on your favorite podcasting platform, either under Crit Academy or Dice and Dialogue. We're on YouTube. We're on all the social medias, TikTok, whatever it is you want. Come. I'm always happy to. Honestly, I put myself out there to entertain and hopefully inspire and help us all grow a little bit better every day. Because we all know, what is it? Journey before destination. I don't care where you end up, but you're going to be remembered for how you got there. And for me, that's helping and coaching up other people. Not that I'm the best in the world. I make mistakes left and right all the time. But come and check us out. Listen to our show. If you like it, please come and tell me. Maybe you'll make it come back sooner. After 300 episodes.
I feel that we're 108 right now, so I feel the grind there. But once again, I'm Tabletop Misfits. Glad to have you, Justin, come in and talk to us about game mastering and tips and tricks and resources, which is one thing that not always we have the chance or time to talk about. But utilize these in your next game. Tell us how you're doing this in your games. Go on to our show. Go on to YouTube, Instagram, those types of places, and let us know this is actually helping. Because I'll tell you one thing I enjoy seeing is when somebody says, yeah, that episode I watched, that actually helped. It's like, holy crap, it actually worked.
That's such a wonderful feeling.
I've only had a handful of those in 100 episodes, so I feel like I'm failing the game players. But once again, check us out over on YouTube, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitch. TikTok's coming. I'm thinking about TikTok. God, it's another adventure I don't want to take on. But you can find this every week here at the Tavern, where we do one of 3 different interviews. We either interview a player, we interview a character, or we interview a world. And all 3 of those are really fun opportunities to learn new ways to role play and interact in ways that you might not have really thought about. Because when we launched the world building one this year, I did not think of the way I was going to have to run that, and it's been a lot of fun so far. Yeah, and then if you like what you hear and are interested in more, you can also see me over on Gen Con TV's channel on Monday nights, where I am currently running through Icewind Dale with a group of travelers that have currently put themselves in quite a predicament as the party has been split. So find out on Monday what happens next. But yeah, tonight we're coming to an end. Thank you all for coming, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon on Tavern Talks. Good night.